The show is called The Business of Life. So honored to have my partner with me, Jim Piccirillo, dedicating the show today to the boss, Brenda Piccirillo.
The whip cracker.
Hey,
this is what happens when you get three drummers in a room. You realize we're all three drummers. Isn't that cool?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I love drummers. We're the best. So our special guest for the whole hour, his name is Brian Maki. Remember the name. If you're looking for a career, well, if you're a company and you got hiring issues, if you're an HR director and you're driving back from lunch and you can't figure out how to get your next CFO or CIO or CTO or CBO or something with an O in it, go to SB Solutions. Is that your website?
Absolutely.
SBSolutions.com?
It's actually sbsolutionsinc.net.
Oh, SB Solutions Inc.
.net. Yeah.
SBSolutionsinc.net. All right. So, everybody's waiting. We're breathless as to most of our listeners do want to make more money. And they would like to get a sexy, cool career where they can tell their mother-in-law. You and I talked about this years ago, Jim. We wanted careers where we could say to our mother-in-laws, this is what we do for a living.
Right. My mother-in-law still doesn't know what I do for a living.
And
most of my family do not know what I do for a living.
I met your in-laws.
Cannot
I love
explain
them.
it.
I love
It's kind of awkward and unfortunate.
Right.
Okay, so how does one go about making more money, getting a new career? How do you do it, Brian Maki?
Okay, so piggybacking on the earlier comments about the 30 years of experience in an industry that they can't stand and they kick themselves and go, how the heck did I get here? Think about it. You're most marketable based on who you know and what you know. So I use the example. Draw concentric circles around your skills and knowledge base. The closer you stay to the center of that circle, the more marketable you are. Every ring you move farther away from the center, the greater risk that you pose potentially to this next employer.
That's grasshopper stuff there, but that's good.
Each one of those rings is less dollars.
Right.
Okay, so the reality of the career change is you've got to figure out your life in such a way that you're willing to take the risk for the reward at the back end.
Right.
And so here's the thing. Flip your job around. So you go, gosh, I'm the payroll manager at blah, 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 and I'm so tired of being that.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other business processes that your job touches in that organization? Or if you have vendors that you deal with that are selling product to your organization, what services, what goods and services do those organizations provide to your company? What opportunities would exist for you being on the other side of the desk? Because you understand that business process. So there may be a way for you to shift gears,
yep,
but there's a direct tie to what you already do.
All right.
So it's not a situation where you go, I'm a payroll manager,
yeah,
but I want to be a model spokesperson director.
But, but especially in a smaller business where you learn the business from the ground up, there's a lot of times you can advance in those situations. I think that's how a lot of people do advance. You learn the business from the ground up, and it's so small you're able to move into other areas. Large companies, you have a tough time moving around. They put you somewhere. They do not let you move in and out of places. So how do you move around the bigger companies?
It's interesting. I just read an article about lateral movement. So oftentimes when companies are looking to promote you, they're looking at your total skill set and they're looking at are they hiring 1 to 2 steps beyond the job that you started at? Get more education. In many cases, in big companies, you don't have an MBA, they might not promote you.
And there is a ceiling nowadays, right? Like when we were coming up, it didn't really matter. If you had a college degree, you could probably zoom right through everything. But now there is a ceiling with certain degrees and stuff.
Everybody's got a college degree.
Yeah.
So
that's just the jumping off point.
much of a differentiator in this day and age.
Yeah.
Getting more education. You're listening to the Business Live, Jim Piccirillo and the coach here. I got to just challenge you just for a second. Isn't it really more knowledge? Jim Piccirillo is a true expert in his field, which I don't know what he does, but
neither does his family.
No,
well, that's easy to be an expert when nobody knows what you do.
But in a serious note here, I became very, very good at one thing. I run a credit card processing company. I don't know how a car engine works. I don't know anything works, but I studied my craft. I have knowledge. I had knowledge that a lot of people didn't have in my industry, and So I argue that it's not education, it's knowledge and it's expertise knowledge in what you want to do. Right or wrong on that?
I agree 100%. My point specifically about increased education is oftentimes a ceiling that blocks someone from becoming a director or a C-level executive versus somebody else in
Right.
that same organization. They might use education as one of the barriers.
But
that would
education
stop-
is experience too, right? I mean, we're all boomers. Like you just said, you don't want to go back to school necessarily, but you got a wealth of knowledge. Can't that be turned? You know, we were looking at the graying of America. We're all boomers. The change in economy and the demographics. How do we do that as boomers or as re-entering the job market if we wanted to do that? By taking advantage of the experience we already have. How do you convey that to an employer?
Well, I tell you, I think one of the biggest mistakes that major businesses is dealing with today is they all focus on the same demographic. You have all of these companies that are going after that candidate that has 1 or 2 jobs out of college to about 15 years of experience. So everybody's vying for that same skill set. Yet you have all of these workers with more experience that have great knowledge, coaches you're talking about, that maybe aren't necessarily being looked at. Our thing is this. We look at the person as a whole. You know, it's not about, gosh, they worked at the 3 really great companies and they've got a nice degree. The net is this: how have you made your company money? How have you saved the money? How have you changed efficiencies in the organization? How have you retained employees? How have you trained and developed? Have you hired individuals that have in turn been promoted 2 or 3 times? The guy that you hired becomes your boss 3 years from now? That's the stuff that makes companies great. And that's the stuff that companies have to be looking at. It's not about going after that same small demographic.
The show's called The Business Life. Every Tuesday, 1 o'clock, Jim Piccirillo and the coach here at KHTS, award-winning KHTS 1220 AM. I want to hire the guy that is a thinker, that is creative, that's an innovator, and is going to help my company make a profit. The other stuff, look at Piccirillo. Take one look at him, okay?
I'm looking at him.
So I don't care if he's got hair down to his waist. I don't care if he's a little overweight. I just want him to tell me.
What?
He's almost balding, isn't he? I just want him to tell me.
Thank God it's radio.
I just want him to tell. Well, no, we're on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go to YouTube and see what Jim and I look like. Go to YouTube. The point is, tell me how you're going to help me make a profit. I'm sure, Jim, and do a follow-up there. If you're going to hire somebody, don't you want somebody to tell you, don't you want somebody innovative, especially in your industry?
Absolutely. I think in my industry, we look for self-starters, people that can solve things on their own without being told over and over. You'd be surprised how many people that you bring into your organization that just stand around watching. It's kind of like I was talking last week about the outer fringe people. You know, if you stand around and watch a lot, you're probably not going to go much where. But if you just dive in there, figure it out on your own, you're a solution provider, you'll do well. But I think what we're getting back to, what I thought we were talking about is the grain of America and how, there's a whole segment of the population that is very talented and very experienced trying to get back into the job market or trying to get a better job or a better foothold as we all get older. They're having a tough time. So
I think one of the big challenges as well is you have the baby boomers retiring.
yeah.
And the reality of it is they go, holy crap, I don't have enough money to retire.
That's right.
Or they retire and realize, I'm going to be out on the streets. I've got to go back to work. Mm-hmm. So it's a very...
So the gig economy, let's talk about that for a second. Last week, Jim and I touched on it. Cody only gave us a minute or so. But the Uber driver is an example of a gig economy, right? The
Sure.
Uber driver.
Right.
Somebody doing private catering is an example.
Musicians. I mean, the gig economy came from the
Film
music
and television
industry.
business. It's
Right.
all gig economy
Right,
now.
exactly.
Yeah, so why...
Nobody has 40-hour employees anymore.
Yeah, interesting.
Nobody wants them. I don't know why. Why?
Well, because, good question.
The cost of the employee.
Right.
You hire somebody full-time, their benefit, the cost of that employee is at least a third more than whatever you're paying them.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, I got a question for you. And I've wondered about this lately. Like, when we were coming up, there was a lot of, you called up your buddy, your dad's friend or somebody, and he made a call. And even like when I was younger, you'd call your friend and you'd get your buddy in there for an interview. There's no more of that. You call anybody and they go, I can't help you. You got to go through human resources, through the proper channels. Nobody wants the legality of even hiring or being the guy that said, hey, I want them in our company.
I would both agree and disagree. I think to a lesser degree it's happening today, but it's interesting. I'll interview candidates that work for clients of mine, and I look at their background and I go back and see all of the job changes that they've made, and I'm thinking, if you had come to me for me to place you at that company at that time, there's no way on earth they would have paid me a fee to hire you. So how did you get that job? Well, the VP of sales, is a good friend, and we got to talking, and, so I do think that who you know and in your network and the connections that you have still play a major point in how you progress your career.
All right. Networking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're listening to The Business Life. Jim Piccirillo and the coach here every single Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And we try to have next week, we're going to have a guest on that's one of America's top musicians. We'll play his music for you next week. And his life story is really something. Today we have Brian Maki with us, a local, very, very successful business owner. And he owns a company called SB Solutions. I want to share with you that no matter where you are in life, and I want to see what Jim and Brian say, no matter where you are in life, you can do better if you want to do better. Your want to has to be bigger than your have to. And, Jim and Brian are dear friends, and both of them are very successful because they want to do better in life. And we all have hurdles. We all have obstacles. Nothing's easy today. Jim just said it. Nothing is easy today. There's so much political crap and BS that we have to overcome in every area of life. But if you're stuck in a career, if you're struggling, you can change that career. You're going to have to do some things. And what are those things, Brian Maki?
Well, interesting quote that I just heard the other day, and it was from Rocky Balboa, who we all know and love, right? It's not how hard you hit, but it's how hard you can take a hit and keep moving forward. And so, piggybacking on your thing about rebounding, how do you change? Do you sit and, oh, woe is me? Do you sit back and go, oh my gosh, I was doing really great at my company, they got acquired, we got laid off? Do you sit and let that weigh on you? Or do you take that experience and go, you know what, build upon what you've learned in that experience and turn that into a positive? The fact of the matter is, it's an opportunity. I look at it as an adventure. There are things about every job that anybody holds that they go, gosh, if I could change one thing about my job, it would be this.
Right.
Face it, we all hate certain aspects of what we do.
That's
we
right.
all do. There's no panacea other than Jim Piccirillo's job,
that's
of
not
course,
true.
coach. But the fact of the matter is, look at it as an opportunity. Go, okay, how do I lessen the amount of stuff that I can't stand about what I do and find something that's more compelling to you?
Right.
You talk about an emotional. Every time, the show was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did Jim's life story. Did you listen to his life story?
I've
So
lived
here's somebody
Jim's
that grew up in
life story.
Logan, West Virginia.
Cue the violins, Cody.
In a coal mine in this little hollow town, and he became one of America's top video, whatever, I don't know what he does. He videos for big networks, all kinds of talent. Anyway, he's become...
Ask my mother-in-law. She can explain it.
I can't explain what you do. But all our shows are podcasts. So if you're a little struggling right now, go about 3 weeks ago, go to the podcast of The Business Life. Listen to Jim Piccirillo's story. That will pick you up. I promise you that'll pick you up. Today, we have Brian Maki talking about careers, jobs. So let's get back to the employer. So the employer's got all kinds of challenges today hiring somebody, because if they make a mistake, it's very expensive, right?
The cost of a bad hire is much more costly than whatever expenses.
So that's where
they
your
incurred.
talent comes in.
That's the reason you would employ a recruiter, to help
Can
you
you find
lessen.
Can you find the dark holes? Could you, if Jim was a candidate, let's say for CFO of a big time network, could you find the dark holes in his past besides his Chippendale dancing issues?
Well, no, that was actually one of the highlights of his career, Coach.
Oh, But could you? Is that your job to find the dark holes in somebody's life?
I mean, certainly, I'm a firm believer in the concept of history repeating itself when hiring. If I look at a person's background and experience, I go back, I try to find out about how they grew up, just like your story with Jim. Out of nothing, the phoenix rises and he becomes the greatest director in the history of network television. Okay.
God, I hope none of my friends are listening.
But
And don't call in and blow it, okay? I've got these guys fooled.
But the fact of the matter is, you look at somebody's background and experience, and if they change jobs every 2 to 3 years, regardless of whatever it is that they tell you what was going on in that organization, patterns. They've set up patterns of change.
But those are also the things we tell people. Don't be afraid to move. Don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to follow the next lead. But when you do that, you get punished because you look like a job hopper.
It's not punishment as much as I'm saying I'm observant to the patterns in people's background and history. So if somebody changes jobs every 2 to 3 years, almost guaranteed they will last with you 2 to 3 years. And maybe
But do you
in
look
this
at that
current-
pattern and go, oh, it was a upwardly move each time.
Well-
It wasn't just a across the board, I'm moving because I feel like moving,
well,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you balance all of that in.
Yeah.
But my point is, history repeats itself.
Sure.
And so that is established a pattern or a habit with how that person responds in a career situation. And so
What percentage, Brian Maki, talking to Brian Maki, the CEO of SB Solutions right here in Santa Clarita, what percentage of people lie on their resume? 100%, 95%?
I'd say nobody ever lies on resumes. I think it's 100% the most accurate document in the history
And
of
that's your
mankind.
job.
So here's an example. There are more Harvard MBAs on resumes. Harvard would have to start doing MBAs in the early 1200s for all of the Harvard MBAs that are on people's resumes.
And you know what? Now you can check that out and find that out, though. You
I'd
used
never-
to.
I would never put
there wasn't a
Harvard-
great way to check all that. Now they know if you went to school or not.
I would never put Harvard on my resume.
Yeah,
Never.
well, I know.
I'm proud to put Pierce
Yeah.
College where
There
I
you
went.
go.
Well, there you
I have
go.
a graduate.
Fantastic.
I have
I
a
mean,
graduate degree.
Agriculture rules.
As did my wife, Coach.
At Pierce, I'm a Brahma
absolutely-
baby.
She is
Also
as well.
went to Cal State Northridge. All right, we're going to come right back. Jim Piccirillo. Brian, thanks for coming. Can you come back sometime?
Coach,
Maybe
if-
5 years from now you
Yeah.
come back?
Can you send us a resume?
If you would
We need to
have
check
me,
this guy out.
if you would have me, Coach.
Yeah, we're going to check you out, pal. Brian Maki of SB Solutions. It was so fascinating. I mean, I could listen to you for hours, but you need to come back. We'll have you back in about 5 years. All right, the show's called The Business of Life on KHTS 1220. The show is called The Business Life. I know you like it. Our phone lines are backed up, so we're not going to take any calls because there's something that's really bugging me.
Oh,
right
gee,
now.
again?
Yeah, I'm bugged.
You're
bugged.
irritated.
I'm really irritated.
Get you some Metamucil or something, man.
Metamucil is not going to help your irritation. You got the wrong part of the body there, young man.
Well,
so I wrote these things down. So getting rid of bad habits. So you and I are both a little overweight.
Gee,
And
you have to keep saying that.
okay, I'll just say it
You're giving me a
once.
complex. I mean,
No, but we have habits
Yeah.
that we need to get better on.
We do,
I mean,
we
if,
do.
if we're going to live to be 100, we need to lose. Do you ever see old fat men? No. No.
Yeah, oh, yeah, you do.
When?
Sure.
Absolutely you do.
Everywhere.
Are you serious?
Every time I look in the mirror, every morning I
Brian's
see
as
an old fat
skinny.
guy. What are you
Brian's
talking
as skinny as a flagpole.
I know.
And he's chiming in.
I know.
Right? Keep your mouth shut, you little
Right.
skinny guy. So,
about? Yeah, I just got a bike. I'm riding my bike again, so.
with
Next
a bad
2 or 3 weeks, you're going to see.
Well,
Okay, it's an
Schwinn,
electric
you
bike.
gotta-
I got an electric bike. I
You
did.
did really?
It's awesome.
Really?
I got an electric bike, 5 levels of power assist up the hills.
So I went out and spent like $3,000 on this.
And you don't ride it, do you?
No, in fact, I gave it away. I
So
rode
get
it.
an electric bike. I'm telling you,
No,
man.
listen
Saves
to me.
your knees and your back.
You're a big man like I am. You're almost 6'4", and so by the time I got on the bike, I was like 10 feet off the ground. I
Right.
thought if I ever fall, I'm
Right.
I'm dead. But I got scared of riding on the street.
Yeah.
And if you look in the newspaper, I grew up in Thousand Oaks, so we
Yeah.
had a lot of bike riders get hit by
Yeah,
cars.
we have tons of trails here in Santa Clarita. I've been just rediscovering the trails the last week or so. I mean, what a network
Why are
of
you?
trails
Is the
here.
marriage in trouble? You're
No,
rediscovering
I just
your
like
trails?
pedaling out in the wilderness
Does
by
Brent-
myself, all right? You know?
Does Brenda go with you?
No.
He's actually working on the Chippendales Underwear Seniors catalog.
There you go.
Leave his past alone.
E-bike, baby. That's the way to go.
So when you look at fixing bad habits,
right, right.
where do you start? You think?
Man, I don't know.
Really?
I'm not the guy to
You
tell
have
you.
no
And it-
suggestions?
Obviously, I'm not a guy that's
So you have so
adhered
many
to
bad habits. I'm going to start a school called badhabits.com.
Well, how do you? Yeah, I don't know. How do you develop those bad habits?
You have to focus.
Yeah.
Let me go back to your want to has to be
Yeah.
bigger than you have to.
Right.
So you have to want to. If you're overweight, you have to have a higher purpose. In other words, I have grandkids, so I want to live to see my grandkids grow up.
Right.
So my big purpose is to try to eat healthier and not deprive myself.
I
So-
saw you at the Persian buffet at lunch. Yeah,
did,
you were
didn't you?
definitely like reining yourself in.
So
just
I'm a little
wrong.
disingenuous right this minute. That was this Persian restaurant next to the station.
Love it, man. That was
Unbelievable.
that was
Their chicken
putting that on my list. I
and
tell
their
you.
what kind of rice is that?
I don't know.
And their tea. It's all
it's really good.
Persian. Yeah,
Really good
Big
stuff.
fan of Persian food. But the point is, I didn't do it at lunch, and thank you for bringing that up.
Well, you're busting my balls. So, can you say balls on the radio?
Oh yeah, you can say that. The point is, you have to cut down on your portions. Now,
Right.
you don't smoke cigarettes.
I do not.
I don't either. But if you smoke cigarettes and you're smoking a pack a day, why don't you try to go 3/4 of a pack?
Yeah, I
Right.
don't know. I don't have those kind of habits. I don't know.
You drink.
Well, thank you. I do drink a little. I'm addicted to coffee.
All right, we're not getting anywhere with bad habits.
I have addictions, bad habits. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Okay, we're not getting anywhere with bad habits. Let's get to this other point here. I've got all these ideas.
Good.
What are you hiding from Brenda?
Really? I would actually say that on the radio. Are you out of your mind?
What are you hiding?
Nothing. I
Cody,
hide
what are you
nothing
hiding
my
from your
wife.
parents?
He's too
Be
young.
honest.
He doesn't hide
I've
anything.
never hid anything ever.
You're not seriously?
No, honesty are the best qualities. Next to modesty.
Wow, we got a little Boy Scout running the board here. You're not hiding.
prepared like a Boy Scout would.
So we're not getting anywhere with hiding anything. So you're apparently not hiding anything.
I think we all hide things. You know.
Do you?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you always tell the truth?
I think everyone has an outward personality and an inward personality. You know, everyone lives inside their head. I would imagine. At least I do. I don't know.
Yeah. Isn't that where you need a shrink if you're living inside your
No,
head?
I like it in there. You know, I agree with me all the time. I like
I'm
it.
my favorite me.
Oh, thank God for the bell.
Yeah. All right. We're past that. Next
Get on
item.
to bashing someone else besides ourselves.
Okay. Let's talk about something you're pretty knowledgeable about: blogging and podcasts. Do you think that? I would love to create a show where people would actually want to listen to our podcast.
Right. Well, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we really do. What do you think people would be interested in a podcast? Do you listen to a podcast?
Occasionally, I do.
And what is it?
God, I can't think of the name right now.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, if I listen. You know what TED Talk is? I listen to TED Talks
I like
or
TED
watch
Talks.
TED Talks.
I like those. Those are good.
So, if we could create a podcast,
I did one for Wired magazine. Same concept as TED. Learned more on that job than any job I've ever done just by watching and listening people talk about how to be successful.
That's great.
I think the key to a successful podcast is the quality of the guests
Right.
that are
no, but
on
everything
the show.
is so free.
This
Brian.
podcast today is going to go through the roof.
Everything is so free. You can go and Google anything on YouTube and get it for free. Cody, at your age group, would you listen to a podcast?
I listen to many podcasts. Yeah.
What would attract you?
For me, it's mostly sports.
Like How to Hit a Home Run by Cody Bellinger?
Honestly, no, more just people talking about sports, speculating. Like, the LeBron saga with Kyrie in Cleveland. I can listen to that.
I'm sick of that.
Hey,
It
what's
is
going on with that?
July. Why are people?
Can the Lakers get Kyrie?
It's baseball
Can, I don't know
season.
if they
Why
will.
aren't we
We can.
talking about baseball? I
Wow.
don't get it. We're still talking about NBA, Kyrie.
Yeah.
Really?
And why aren't we talking about golf, for God's
Yeah.
sakes? Why aren't
for
we
God's
talking about
sakes.
golf?
Yeah.
That's
because-
probably one of the greatest tournaments I've ever seen this last weekend. Spieth was amazing.
Unbelievable.
Talk about rebounding. Talk about the potential, exactly what you were talking about in the business of
Don't
life.
ever give up.
That
Don't
ability
ever-
to rebound
Yeah.
from the face of adversity was unbelievable.
There was a great lesson in not quitting. Are we ever? We only have a minute left in the show. I want to do another hour. Darn it! I had so many.
That
other
was
things.
quick.
Can we come back next week,
Yeah.
Cody? I've got so much I need to share with our
I'll be
audience.
here. I'll be here if you guys come.
Jim
Next Tuesday,
Piccirillo, that's his name. I'm Coach Ron Tunick. The show is called The Business Life every Tuesday. Now, next Tuesday, if you're listening, put it on your calendar. We have one of America's, it's Johnny Mac and the Heart.
No, it's Jack Mack and the Heart Attack's lead singer, Mark Campbell. What a story. This guy is a New Orleans-born white R&B singer. Has been doing this for 30 years on the road, traveling in a real rock and roll band.
What a life story.
Great
And I
guy.
love his music.
Great stories. Great musician. One of the best R&B voices you'll ever hear anywhere.
See you next week, 1 o'clock. Next Tuesday on KHTS 1220, award-winning KHTS 1220. Thanks, Brian Maki.
Coach, Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.